Thank you for joining today as I address one of the key ways that all states with financial literacy mandates fail to meet minimum education standards required by other topics. Today, we're going to be talking about customization of lesson plans based on student needs. If you're not aware, I've reviewed every state in detail that has financial literacy mandates across 12 core areas that align with education best practices and research based education methodologies. These are best practices that other subjects enjoy that are ignored when teaching personal finance. Today, we're talking about customization of lesson plans, and we'll talk about the uniqueness of personal finance and how we can help to improve financial literacy education at that high school and elementary school level. Now, when we look at customization of lesson plans, every single state fails on this point. And it's a critical point they fail to address, and kids are suffering because of it. They're not getting the knowledge and skills and education they need to properly manage their finances when they graduate. And that's really the goal of personal finance. And this customization of lesson plans is very common with your English, your math, your science, because at the high school level, they have several different levels of training in those fields. You have your remedial for those people that may be behind a little bit in, let's say, math. You have your standard or college prep levels for those people more on pace. You have your honors people for those people that are more advanced, and you have the AP classes for people that are really advanced. So you have different levels based on student knowledge and competencies. Now, with personal finance, there's one level, and that's it. Even the states with the most comprehensive standards only require one semester, and it's one semester that everybody takes, no matter their level. So, what happens if somebody is in a personal finance class where they know a lot of material? Well, in that case, they're bored, right? They're sitting there bored in this classroom. I know this. Why am I here? If we're teaching a student that might be very advanced for them, they might get frustrated and shut down because it's too advanced. Again, these other classes have these various levels because educators know if you're teaching above somebody's level or below, it's going to cause lack of interest or frustration or a variety of other emotions that we don't want involved in this. So again, with personal finance, they ignore education best practice standards and they just teach one class for everybody, and that's it. The second area that's unique to personal finance really is customization of lesson plans based on socioeconomic factors. Now, I have personal experience with this. When I was first starting out in teaching personal finance back in 2006, I was in Orange County, and I grew up in Huntington Beach, right? So I did a lot of my presentations in Huntington Beach, but I also did a lot just on the other side of Warner Avenue in the Santa Ana School District, just across the bridge in Long Beach as well. And just to give you an example, in Santa Ana School District, one of the poorest school districts out there, kids were sharing books. They all had small pencils, and you could tell most kids were on the student food plan, etc. Impoverished area, again, not a good area, but these kids in that district knew a lot about budgeting, delayed gratification, because they grew up with that. Now, the same kids, they had very little hope for the future. And I remember I would always do a compounding interest activity, really with all high schools I did back in the day, to give them excitement and hope for the future. If they just start saving a little, they can progress. In my pre and post test in those areas, until I figured out and I adjusted my education, didn't show much results between the pre and post test. And I did the same pre and post test and the same lesson in a more wealthy area in Orange County. I did a lot of work with Huntington Beach High School and other high schools in the area that had money. Their parents had money, and they had a ton of hope for the future. They did very well on that question because they, I guess, better had hope that they can make that $1 million and they can understand that money can grow. They're around more investment in that type of conversation. But the same kids in the wealthier area had very little knowledge of budgeting and delayed gratification and other things. So that's just one example. There's many other variants when it comes to teaching various socioeconomic students, and those need to be addressed through customized lessons, customized activities, and things that are most relevant to the students we're teaching. Yet, all states fail to meet that minimum standard, and it's pretty logical, right? When you have students with certain skill sets and certain traits, and that may be lacking others, you focus on the areas so they can strengthen those. But again, they ignore that when they're teaching personal finance. And finally, the other aspect they ignore is they train kids a general curriculum. The biggest example I see time and time again in the financial literacy training, they'll have a lot of college planning training in there, which is fine for the people going to college, but for the 4 in 10 that don't go to college, it's wasted time. For the 33% that drop out of college, it's wasted time. So half the class, more than half the class, it's irrelevant information that they do not need. So it's important that as an educator, we're addressing the topics that benefit the entire class. Things like moving out on your own, opening bank accounts, what to do when you get the flood of credit card offers, transportation options. That's going to benefit all of the students, and it's timely, it's important, and it's urgent. Now, there should be a separate class for those people that are wanting to go to college that can focus in on that college planning, paying for college, etc. But it should not be in the financial literacy class for the general populace, because again, over half the students will not benefit from that because they're not going to college, or they're going to drop out very shortly afterwards. So customization of lesson plans is critical. This is one of our 12 indicators we look at to measure programs across this country as far as their financial literacy mandates in high schools. And every single state fails to meet this basic line item. Schools need to do better. States need to do better. We need to ensure our kids are getting lesson plans that are relevant for them and that motivate them to live a healthier, more self-sufficient, and satisfying life.